This holiday season was not only amazing for my eBay store, but it was easily the best month for my consignment space. If you guys are new to the channel and these videos, I do a full recap every month of each of my Pokemon card business ventures. The first one is my eBay store and the flipping side of the business. Basically, I source a bunch of cards from Japan, I get them graded with either PSA, CGC, or BGS, and then I sell them here in the US market on eBay for profit. The second section of the business that I track is my consignment space that I have in a local comic book store. I have a small 6-foot table in a comic book shop where I sell singles and packs and different accessories and some graded cards here and there. It's been a great little space to get myself anchored in locally and get some local business churning. And last but not least, in this video, we're going to be tracking the classic collections. In past videos, I had two major collections that I was tracking, and we hit so far into the profits that they're no longer going to be in these videos. But I thought it would be fun to track the classic collections that I bought, one Japanese and two English. I sent them all out for grading to try and flip and make some profit on them. So we're going to be tracking all the cards that I sell from those classic collections and see just how much money I can make off of those boxes. All right, let's dive into the nitty gritty and jump into the spreadsheet. First, I'm going to run through each of the columns and explain how this spreadsheet works. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory. We have the card number and the card name. We have card cost. This is the initial cost of the card that I purchased raw most of the time from Japan. We have the grading cost, the cost of grading. Typically, you're going to see either $9.60 or $15 because most of the time I only grade bulk with the grading companies. Cost total is the card cost and grading cost added together. Sales is the amount of money that a card sells for on eBay gross. And then we have fees, which are going to be those eBay fees. Sales minus fees is just that. It's the fees taken out from the gross sales amount. And then profit is actually the sales minus fees column, subtracting the cost total, and that gives us our profit amount for each card. And usually what I like to do here on the sheet is I like to highlight some of the big losses and talk through those, and then highlight some of the big wins and talk through those. The different sales where I underperformed are where you're going to see this light red and dark red on the profit column. The light red is typically sales that profit $3 or less, and the dark red is when we've actually lost money on those cards. So you can see in this column, there's quite a bit of dark red and light red. For the big wins, I designate those by doing light green and dark green. So dark green is anything that profits over $100. Light green is anything that profits over $50. And then all the yellow is just cards that profit between like $5 and $45. So let's start at the top and run through some of the losses. The first card we have here is a CGC 10 Jolteon character rare. So this sold for 28 bucks. I probably accepted a best offer on it. I was all in for $21.30. So after fees, I only came out $1 ahead. Some of those CGC Gem Mint 10s right now, they're pretty illiquid, kind of tough to move. So if I'm not trying to move them at the shop, they move actually faster at the shop than actually on eBay in my experience, unless I'm auctioning them. But if you're auctioning them, you're probably going to take a bit of a hit. So this one sold for 28. Luckily, we came out $1 ahead, but not what I hope for with most transactions with the flipping side of the business. Now we have a PSA 9 Politoed and a PSA 9 Ampharos. These mid-era hollows in PSA 9 typically are either going to lose a little bit or you're going to struggle to break even, and that's what we did here on these two cards. I was $24.66 all in. I sold it for $24.99. After fees and everything, I lost $4 on the Politoed. For the Ampharos, I was $28 all in, sold for $34.99, and came out almost $1 ahead, about 76 cents ahead, but just made my money back. Those mid-era hollows, PSA 9, definitely gonna struggle to make any money off of those. It's always a bit of a risk when I do those mail days and I get those mid-era hollows in. I love the mid-era hollows. There's really good margins on 10s, but it's pretty difficult to get 10s and they sell pretty slowly. So there's a bit more risk in those than just going your normal like ultra modern route with cards that have good profit margins. So next up, I think we're getting into a block of auctions, if I remember correctly. Here you can see a Radiant Charizard from Pokemon Go. I was all in for 23. This one only sold for 29. Usually I sell them for a bit more than that. They usually go like 35, 40-ish range if I'm selling them by it now slower. But in December, I was trying to auction and move a lot of cards that I had doubles of in PSA 10 that I feel like had some high liquidities. Some of the really popular Pokemon character rares and popular Pokemon Radiant cards and stuff like that. I was auctioning them off, trying to free up some capital on those during the holiday season. I felt like I did pretty decently for them, basically made a little bit or made my money back on some of them. So we have the Radiant Charizard Go here. I was all in at $23. Like I said, typically it's like $35, $40 in a 10. This one sold for $29 at auction, so I only came out $1 ahead. Same kind of thing happened here with a Vaporeon character rare, all in for $21.30, sold for $27, and only made about $1 at the end of the day. And the exact same thing happened here with the PSA 10 Flareon character rare. Again, a character rare. I bought in a little high at these for nearly $6.50. For a long time, they were sitting around like the $3, $4 range. And I think I bought these in a lot. That's why they all cost $6.30. But they shot up for a little bit when the Japanese market exploded, and then they came crashing, roaring right back down, just like everything else. I sold this one for $27 after fees, only made about $1.02. We have a PSA 8 Lugia from a Diamond and Pearl set. This was almost $28 I bought in because it looked really clean. For some reason, PSA thought it didn't look so clean. They gave me a PSA 8. But even at an 8, thankfully, because it's Lugia, I think, and because of the card that it is, I was able to get out of there at $49.99 and only lose around 80 cents, close to $1. All right, once again, we're getting into a bit of an auction block, if I remember correctly. So we have a Radiant Blastoise here. Radiant Blastoise not selling fantastically, but they are super cheap raw. So I was into it for about $3 raw, 18 all in. It unfortunately only sold for 21 at auction, but we only lost about $1 on that card. This one here, we lost quite a bit more. So this was $6.30. This is a PSA 10 EV character rare. I sold at auction for only $19.50. We were all in for $21.30. So this is pretty rare, but it actually sold for less than what my actual cost for the card was. And then if you add the fees on top of that, we lost over $5 on that one character rare. Definitely not what you like to see, but auctions are variable. They can do really well or they can do really poorly, and this one in particular did pretty poorly. We got a nice big block of red here and a lot of dark red here, and that's because of auctions. So let's go through. So we have a bunch of character rares. We got Charizard, Eevee, Flareon, Jolteon. All of these character rares I was in for around $22 a piece, and these ended in weird spots. So we have multiple that ended less than what the total cost of the cards were. So we have some $19.50, some $20.50, some $19.50. Then we have the Charizard that did a little bit better at $28.88, but at the end of the day, this entire stack of cards here either barely made money or lost me a bunch of money. So a couple of the cards made around $2 a card, but you can see 4 of these cards they basically all lost nearly $5 per card. This one at $3 per card. The last of that auction block is this CGC 10 Pristine Pikachu VMAX. So I was all in at $19.50. This one sold for $26 after fees and everything. Only around a $2 profit. PSA slapped a mid-air holo with another 9 here. We have a Mewtwo from Diamond and Pearl set. This is a PSA 9. Really cool holo of Mewtwo. I actually really like how this one looks, but this unfortunately got the 9, and I was only able to sell it for $30. After the $4.99 fees and everything, we come out $7 behind on that card. My buy-in was probably a little much, and at the end of the day, like having to sell for $30, it's fine because I want to move the card. I want to get the cash flowing again, but it sucks to have those individual losses. Thankfully, over the course of the sheet, you can see there's way more yellow and there's some really big green ones. So at the end of the day, the profit's going to be way into the positive, but it really sucks to see these individual losses on certain cards. And you can tell a lot of the losses we incurred are from auctions, and that's just me trying to liquidate cards that I have a lot of that I just want to move and free up some capital. Last but not least, we're still suffering the effects of the Charizard V-Star. Over the last couple months, you've seen that my buy-in price for these Charizard V-Stars was way too much. At the time that I bought these, I think I made a video on this, but at the time that I bought these, $60 was a decent price for this card because the PSA 10s were in the hundreds, and then V-Star Universe had a massive inflow, a huge reprint of boxes and singles, and this card now you can get for probably like $20-25 in PSA 10 condition. So the ones I'm selling now in PSA 10 sell for around like $75. This one sold for $79.99, and at the end of the day, I still lost $4 just because that buy-in price was way too high at the time that I purchased it. Last but not least, we have the Lugia V-Star Gold card. My buy-in price is a little high here. They have continued to come down. I think I've picked up some more around like the $20 range, maybe even less than that, maybe like the $15 to $18 range. And my total buy-in for this was $43. I sold it for $55. and after fees and everything, I only made $3. All right, let's head back up to the top of the sheet and we'll go down our big wins for the month. So a lot of the big wins you're gonna see are eBay Vault sales. I made a whole video about selling on eBay Vault, the benefits of doing so. If you have any questions about it, you can check out that video. eBay Vault has 0% sales fees for sellers on cards that are $250 or more. And so a lot of the cards that I've been getting in over the last couple months, if it's around that $250 range, I've been sending them to the eBay Vault because I mean, if it's zero fees, it's zero fees. And the biggest thing that people complain about with eBay is that they take too many fees, right? So if you can dodge the fees by using the vault to sell some cards, that's pretty awesome to me. And that's what I did this month with some of my higher end cards. So let's go through which cards did really well through the eBay Vault. So some of the first cards that I sent to the eBay Vault were my black labels that I got from my first ever BGS submission. I got a bunch of these black label Gengar character rares. Now these character rares are extremely cheap. I mean, I bought in at like $4 a piece, $18 to grade at BGS, $22 total, and I sold those black labels for $300 and $310 respectively because they were through the vault, zero fees. So the profits on those cards were $278 profit and $288 profit on those two cards because they got black label and because the market and the people who collect black labels are completely irrational. But I'll take it. I will take it. Next up is a card that I've bought a lot of at this point. It is the PSA 10 25th anniversary Charizard in Japanese. So not the celebrations version, but the Japanese version that came in the little promo packs. I've bought a bunch of these. 99% of them have gotten PSA 10. And actually, these were the first cards ever that I purchased graded. The first ever graded cards that I purchased because there was a 20% coupon on Buy for most of December. And these cards in particular, these PSA 10s, were listed quite low. These are probably listed in like the 240 range. And with that 20%, you're talking nearly $50 discount on those. So I picked a few of these up for under $200. And at the time they were selling for like $270, $280. So I just got them in. I sent them immediately to eBay Vault because there was the 0% fees and I sold them on the Vault. This one I was all in for $197 because it was PSA 10 when it came in. I didn't have to grade it. I sent it immediately to the Vault, sold it for $280 for an $83 profit. Now I will say that the raw copies of this card have continued to go down in price, but also the graded price of these cards have continued to drop. So I think the last ones that I've sold were maybe in like the 250, 260 range, maybe 255 for the last one that I sold of this. And a lot of them are selling under the 250s now. And a lot of it is kind of a race to the bottom at the minute. So people are getting these in PSA 10s and listing them underneath each other and it's going down. So luckily I've bought into these cards raw for like 120, like 110 to 130 range with that 20%. So even if this card drops all the way down to like $200, I should still do okay on them. Obviously, I don't want that to happen. I want them to stay around like the 250 range because that helps out a lot more. But I think this card, for me personally, I think it has decent fundamentals. The way that it was distributed was unique. And the card looks great. It's a reprint. It's got the 25th logo on it. 25 years of Pokemon is a momentous occasion. We'll see how it fares in the long run. The next couple are not eBay Vault sales, but they're kind of unique in their own right. We have the Gyarados full art card from Bandit Ring in a PSA 10. I bought this card raw maybe in 2022 and I graded it and I kept it around because I liked it a lot. I got two of them, so I actually flipped one of them and kept the other one. Recently, I decided to sell that one here as well on eBay. So my buy-in for this card was only $10.65. Graded it for $15, 25 all in, sold it for $140. So at the end of the day, after fees, nearly made $90 on that one card. I think recently, actually, I've bought one or two more of those. That's what I kind of like to do to scale. So if I buy a card that has really good like profit margin and decent fundamentals like this one, I try to go back onto Buy and try to source maybe a couple of them with the profits that I made off of this, and then hope that the sale price kind of stays where it is, maybe adjusts a little bit down, a little bit up. It's a little bit variable. Obviously, it depends on the market. Now, in my mind, I've confirmed, okay, this card sells. People like this Pokemon. People want this card. People want this in PSA 10. Let me grab a couple more. This is a really interesting play that I did at like the end of 2022, and I still had one card lying around, so that's why you can see my buy-in price is $1. I still wanted to put $1, but I've made my money back and more on the one box that I bought. These are 1989 Topps Nintendo sticker cards. I bought a box of these back in 2022, I think it was like a $200 box. I graded a bunch of them. I got a bunch of PSA 10s, and at the time, the PSA 10s were selling for like 150 bucks. So I sold a bunch of them between like 100 and 150 bucks in 10s. This one sold for $90 in a 10. And after grading fees and fees in general, I came out $60 ahead. But on that box, I wish I had tracked how much I actually profited from that box. But those cards are super cool. I love the artwork on them. And that box made me probably a bunch of money after grading and selling all the PSA 10s and PSA 9s. Next up, we got a couple more eBay Vault sales. This is another one of those PSA 10 25th Charizards that I spent $197 on. And actually, the next one is also the same thing. 25th anniversary Charizard, $197. These are the ones that I sourced PSA 10, bought them already graded, sent them immediately to eBay Vault for a quick flip opportunity. So we made $63 on the first one and $58 on the other one. You can see what I'm saying with these sale prices though. If we go back up, we sold for $280 the first one. The second one sold later in the month for $260, $20 less. And then after that, the next one sold for $255. So the prices continue to come down gradually, and that's only in the course of 1 month. So that's a sales price dropping nearly 10% of the course of 1 month, and they continue to go down. So just be wary when you're buying those cards. If you're buying them raw, be wary of what they're selling for in PSA 10 because that PSA 10 price is dropping. The next one we have is this PSA 10 Raichu. This is a Flight of Legends holo that is, I think, the Japanese equivalent of Fire Red Leaf Green. This is a PSA 10 Raichu I bought for nearly 20 bucks, $18.96 after grading $33.96. Sold for $100, which is awesome. And at the end of the day, after fees, $51.37 profit. And last but not least, we have an Advent of Arceus PSA 10 Charizard Holo. I sourced this one for $21.53. It did get the PSA 10, $15 to grade, $36 all in, $187.50 sold. That means at the end of the day, after fees, we made $118.70 on that mid-era Charizard Holo in PSA 10. So our total flipping profits for this month were $2,107.99. So that means that off of our gross sales of $5,825.49, we had a profit margin of 36% this month, which is fantastic. I think last month it was closer to like 20-25%, 36% profit margin this month. Absolutely fantastic. Now let's talk about the consignment space. So there wasn't anything particularly crazy or new that I added to the consignment space at the beginning of December. I think Shiny Treasure EX was already out, I think. So I added a bunch of Shiny Treasure EX singles. Those have kind of sat. There hasn't really been a lot of movement on those over the last month. I think people are waiting for the English equivalent maybe in the local area. But for English singles, these are all English singles that are in my English binder up at the shop. I'm still working off of 2 binder collections that I purchased earlier in the year at a little buy, sell, trade event that I hosted at the store. This month's sales were much larger than previous months at $459. Usually those singles are cards that are less than $20. So if a single is $20 or more, I put it in the case, and that is considered a case card. We'll see later on. But these are cards that are less than $20. So $459 of cards that are less than $20. Actually pretty insane. Japanese singles, even crazier. So I had sourced a bunch of character rares and art rares earlier in the month, maybe November-ish now. I think I sourced like 700 character rares and art rares at around 70 cents a piece. So I think my buy-in for all of that was around 500 bucks, somewhere around there. Once I got those in, I priced them all out. Most of them were like between $2 and $5 a piece. And then I stacked the Japanese binder that's up there with those art rares and character rares, and it seemed like that really boosted a lot of sales from that particular binder because Japanese outsold English, which usually does not happen. $663 in Japanese singles sold in December. Absolutely crazy. Again, those are going to be cards that are $20 or less, and most of those cards are going to be $5 or less. So we sold a metric shit ton of Japanese singles at the shop this month. Modern bulk singles. So modern bulk is all of the commons, uncommons, reverse holos, and holos that I put up at the store from all my big openings that I do here on YouTube. So those are going to be the cards that players are going to want to go and find different cards to build out their decks, or young kids usually go in with parents and they buy just some random reverse holos and holos. My commons, uncommons, regular rares are 4 for $1, so 25 cents a piece. And then my reverse holos and holos are 50 cents a piece, 2 for $1. So I love seeing the dollar amount for this particular section grow, because $117.50 pays for like 1.5 booster boxes for some of the booster boxes that I've purchased to either sell packs or to open here on the channel so that I have singles up at the store. So that number continuing to grow and more players coming in and buying singles and buying up a bunch of modern bulk singles really helps to boost the amount that I'm actually able to open for the next month or for the next big set. Accessories. So accessories are mostly just ETB sleeves. So the little packs of ETB sleeves I put up at the store, I think for like $4 a piece. And this recent set, I decided to do packs of 50 of the code cards for $4 a piece. I think I sold maybe like 4 packs of the code cards, and then the rest is going to be ETB sleeves. So that actually did really well this month as well for the accessories up at the shop. Case cards. So $460 in graded and higher value singles. I will say that most of this was graded cards. We had a person come in and just wipe us out of all the graded cards. I have never received a text from the people who work up at the shop, but one of the days I received a text that said, all of your graded cards were just wiped out. Can you come fill in some more? That was an amazing text to receive, but somebody came in and bought a bunch of the graded cards, which is fantastic. I think they only left like 3 left in the case, so I had to run a bunch of stuff up there in the middle of the workday. I ran a bunch more graded stuff up to the shop. But yeah, we had $460. Most of that was graded because a lot of the higher value singles I actually pulled from the case and sold on my eBay here in January. I've been really surprised with how the graded cards have been moving. I think I am the only person, the only shop within I don't know how many miles of my particular place where you can find graded cards. I think most places are either doing singles or sealed product. I'm actually doing graded stuff. So it's really cool to see like graded Japanese cards in PSA 10, PSA 9. Usually I tend to leave them around lower values. So like a PSA 10 or like 25 to 50, 60 bucks. I don't try to go into like the multiple hundreds. Although I have been asked many times by the store owners up there, like, hey, can you bring in some more expensive stuff? I think it would do well, bring in some more expensive stuff, but I just haven't. Most of my expensive stuff goes immediately to eBay, and I don't want some of the higher liquidity expensive stuff just sitting at the store waiting for someone to buy it when I can be more liquid and sell them immediately on eBay. So graded overall has been doing fantastically. It's been incredible to see the growth of this number and the amount of people coming in looking for PSA, BGS, CGC. It really doesn't even matter the grading company. They just kind of move at that $25 to $60 price point. And last but not least, of course, booster packs. The way that I have been facilitating booster packs at the shop is buying stuff off of TikTok. So the TikTok deals were insane. Some of the discounts were crazy. I was buying some 151 UPCs, some Paradox Rift booster boxes. I mean, some of the booster boxes were like $70, $75. And at the store, I can sell those packs for $4.50. So that's a pretty decent profit margin off of one pack, and the packs sell pretty well. You can't really go into a store and get a single pack for $4.55. Even at Target, even at Walmart, those packs are $5, I think now, $4.99. So when people are coming in to look at the different singles or the graded cards, it's really easy for them to just grab a couple packs on the way out as well. And I think that really helps to kind of boost those profit margins there. Now, the TikTok situation is changing. I think the fees have been extremely low for sellers, and they're actually being boosted. I think they were like 2% at first or something like that. Now they're going to be 8%. And I don't know if they're going to be offering as many coupons as they were during that holiday season. So I'm not sure how that's going to affect things going forward. But that was a really great way for me to source some sealed product to break down into packs and then to sell for profit at the shop. So overall, this was the first time that the shop has ever reached $2,000 in sales, and somehow it nailed it on the dot. $2,000 in sales at the shop, 6-foot table, just the top of it, barely any space to fit much stuff. $2,000 in sales, actually insane. So the consignment fee up there. Every sale that happens at the shop, there's a 10% consignment fee on the sale, and then I pay $100 a month in booth rent. So this month, the fees for being up at the shop were $300 and $2,000 in sales, which means at the end of the day, the take home that I have coming from the shop is $1,700. I have been going through and figuring out how much I've spent on the shop so far, how much I've taken from the shop so far, and I will make a video here sometime soon on whether or not the first year of the shop was profitable. Last but not least, we have the 3 classic collection boxes that I'm going to be tracking over the next couple months until we hit profit margins. I spent $1,130 on the 3 classic collection boxes, and I've already sold quite a lot. You can see that the total profit, we're not yet in the profit. We're still down $255.60, but I have sold a lot of the cards that have come through. I sold my Japanese CGC 9.5 Charizard for $160. Most of these cards are pretty cheap. They're like $80 or less. You can see one of the PSA 10 Snorlax is sold for $80, the other for $76. I've basically, at this point, been taking, if someone sends me a best offer that seems fairly reasonable, I'm taking it on the classic collection cards because the prices keep going down and down and down and down and down. I will say that recently I did adjust all of my classic collection cards on eBay. I price adjusted them to be low list, and they are selling like hotcakes. So I would not be surprised if in January we are well into the profit already on the classic collection boxes. The 2 PSA 10 English Charizards just hit the eBay vault, so I just listed them recently as well. So if those sell for comparable prices to some recent sales that I've seen on eBay, this will go well into the profit. And I still have a bunch of like the starters and stuff and things from these boxes to sell. We've got a lot more to sell. We've got some of the bigger cards still to sell, and we're only $250 away from the profit. So I feel like we're going to do very well on the classic collection boxes at the end of the day, even if I have to auction like the remaining like Chanseys and Clefairies and stuff. I still feel like I will do very solid on these things, but we will continue to track these in future months, and we will see just where it ends up for me. All right, guys, well, that is it for the December recap. Absolutely amazing month for Pokemon card sales, both locally and on eBay. Very excited for what is to come in 2024 and how I can continue to scale both sections of the business to become even more successful than they already are. If you guys want to see how well we did in November, you can check out the November video here and work your way back throughout the year to see how the business has scaled.